Today, I'm going to explain an action, crime, and sci-fi film called Robocop. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. A local news station reports about dead and injured police officers. Omni Consumer Products or OCP is the firm responsible for the operations of the Detroit Metropolitan Police Department. The president of OCP, Richard Jones, states that police officers who can't handle the risks should look for a career change. Clarence Boddicker, a crime boss in Old Detroit, is the prime suspect for the police killings. Two lawyers harass Sergeant John Reed in the Metro West precinct until he snaps and throws them out. As they leave, Murphy, a cop from the Metro South precinct, reports his transfer to John and suits up for his first day on the job. In the showers, the police staff complain about the new management. A fellow cop suggests planning a strike. Unfortunately, John enters and hears it. John removes the nameplate on Officer Frederickson's locker, the officer that died from the police killings. Everyone is silent as he announces the upcoming funeral. He then addresses their plan to have a strike, saying the city will crumble without the police. In the lobby of the precinct, Murphy watches an officer and a fugitive fight. The man catches punches from Officer Ann Lewis, who catches Murphy's attention. Murphy is her new partner, and they venture out, playfully conversing in the vehicle. In the OCP headquarters, the CEO unveils the model of Delta City, which will be built on the grounds of Old Detroit, purging the area of crime and unwanted communities. Bob Morton stands out when he applauds first. Richard Jones makes his way to the podium to present his plans for the Detroit Police Department. He created a cop who works every hour of every day, doesn't need sleep or food, and is overall superior. He opens the doors, revealing the machine Ed 209. It walks to the board members, who watch it with both fear and awe. A volunteer, Mr. Kinney, aims a gun at Ed for demonstration. The machine threatens him to drop the weapon, which he complies with. But Ed continues to threaten him. The engineers scramble to try and disable the machine while Kinney runs behind the board members for help. Out of fear, they push him away, leaving him defenseless as Ed showers him with bullets. While the others handle the accident, the CEO expresses disappointment over the project. Richard claims that it's only a minor setback, but the CEO doesn't see a $50 million setback as minor. Bob interrupts their discussion to inform them about the Robocop project. The CEO gives him a chance despite Richard disagreeing. Bob says that he has already selected candidates from the police department. It'll only take 3 months for the prototype. He gets the CEO's approval, leaving Richard furious. In the streets of Detroit, Murphy practices his gunslinging tricks, having learned the tricks to impress his son. They hear an announcement on the radio that leads them to a robbery. In the robber's van, Clarence berates his goons for burning the stolen money. They're on a chase with Murphy and Ann, but their vehicle is too slow to outrun the police. So Clarence commands the driver to slow down. With a gun in each hand, Murphy prepares to shoot. Clarence and his goons are ready for him, opening the doors to see an empty road. The car maneuvers beside the van, and a shootout commences on the highway. Murphy hits the leg of one of the goons, causing the rest of them to fire with everything they've got. Clarence picks up the injured goon and throws him toward the police car, shattering the windshield and making Ann lose control. Murphy pushes the injured goon off and resumes their pursuit. They arrive at an abandoned mill with no backup coming. Despite the danger, Ann decides to chase after them. The van is empty. Clarence and his goons are nowhere to be seen. The two separate to cover as much area as possible, sneaking within the shadows and checking every corner of the buildings. Ann sees a man relieving himself, and the pop of her bubblegum disrupts the flow of urine. The man, Joe, turns around with his hands up and zippers down. Ann can't help but take a peek, allowing Joe to attack and push her over the railings. Meanwhile, Murphy hears the goons talking about their plans. Emil and the other goon watch their favorite show, unaware of the gun pointing at them. Murphy jumps, holding them at gunpoint. The other man grabs his shotgun but gets shot for it. Emil drops his weapon and surrenders. On the radio, Ann hears Murphy reporting his situation. Suddenly, the rest of the goons surround him. He drops his guard, and Emil strikes his gun away. Hopelessness grows as 3 shotguns aim at his head. Clarence enters the scene and confronts the officer. He mocks Murphy, breathing down his neck and striking his calves. Clarence knocks him around, asking where his partner is. Joe enters, saying that she's taken care of. They circle him like sharks to their prey. Clarence aims up and down Murphy's body while making robotic sounds. The goons roar with laughter when Clarence shoots Murphy's hand off. A bloody Murphy tries to escape, but he turns around to see them aiming at him. He shouts in pain as shotgun shells rain on him. Clarence finishes him off with a bullet to the head before leaving. Ann rushes to his aid, finding her partner bloody on the floor. Medical professionals surround a helicopter carrying the dying policeman. They rush him inside, transferring him to the operating table. While the doctors struggle to revive him, Murphy sees his life flash before his eyes. Reliving moments with his son and wife. Everything turns black as the doctors fail to keep him alive. After some time, static flashes from a display and scientists appear in view. Bob and his partner discuss adjustments for the Robocop operation. After months of developing the cyborg, Bob looks at it and praises his creation. The time comes for Bob to present Robocop to the group, and they shower him with applause. In the precinct, Bob and his team enter, causing a fuss that angers John. However, he becomes speechless as the sound of metal clangs from the entrance. Robocop catches everyone's attention. The police staff chase after him, watching as the head engineer presents Robocop's features. He leads them to a machine that dispenses Robocop's food, and they test Robocop to make sure that his prime directives are set. Robocop's screen lists his 3 directives, with the 4th one marked as classified. In a gun range, Anne practices her shooting. She sees from afar a metal hand firing with pinpoint accuracy. Everyone watches in awe as he obliterates the practice target. Bob asks John for the keys to Robocop's vehicle, and he catches it without even looking. Bob admires him like a proud father. Robocop rides out to the city, and the streets of Detroit instantly become safer. In a convenience store, a man enters to buy a magazine. He approaches the cashier and asks for all their money. The lady is hesitant, but his gun persuades her. As the lady puts the money in the bag, she presses the panic button. Robocop enters the store, and the man realizes he's screwed. He frustratingly fires at the indestructible metal shell. Robocop bends the barrel easily and smacks the thief. He thanks the owner for cooperating and wishes them good night. 2 delinquents harass a woman walking down the street. They hold her still to cut her hair. They aren't satisfied and plan to cut the hair below. Robocop arrives right on time and shoots the man between the woman's skirt. He falls to the floor with a bloody crotch, and the woman runs to thank Robocop. Commotion occurs in front of the city hall as a former councilman holds the mayor and his staff hostage. Robocop arrives at the scene, and reporters quickly surround him. He enters the building while the police outside negotiate with the hostage taker. As he voices out his demands, Robocop nears the room. Robocop uses his thermal vision to look through the walls. The former councilman pushes the mayor's face into the window, threatening to blow his head off. Then, Robocop pulls him through the wall and punches him out the window. The news of Robocop spreads throughout the city, instilling fear in criminals and hope for the masses. Aside from his immense skill, Robocop manifests a charm that makes kids and adults adore him. The news anchor reports about the OCP's construction of Delta City. Bob, the new vice president of OCP, tells the media that Robocop will eliminate all crime in Old Detroit. In the bathroom, Bob and a colleague talk about his recent achievements. They gossip about how Richard lost his touch. The other employees leave the bathroom as the toilet flushes in one of the stalls. Richard exits and congratulates Bob, noting how he also once talked bad about his superiors. The difference is, Richard knew not to cross the line. He berates him about ruining his plan with Ed 209, but Bob remains unfazed and says that Robocop is better. Richard threatens Bob, saying that he'll regret making him his enemy. In the precinct, Robocop is going through maintenance. He twitches in his chair, and the readings in the machine fluctuate. Clarence appears in his head, and he remembers the day he and his goons killed him. The display shows his visions, and the engineers finally notice. Robocop stands and starts walking out, ignoring the commands from his creators. Robocop passes Anne in a corridor, who runs after him and tries to introduce herself. She recognizes him as Murphy, but Robocop turns away from her. The lead engineer shouts at Anne to stop the cyborg. Robocop leaves the vicinity, and the lead engineer blames Anne for it. At a gas station, Emil robs a studying attendant. Robocop is in the distance, on his way to arrest him. Emil bullies the bookworm, saying that being smart won't save him from a bullet. They aim at one another, and Emil realizes that Robocop is Murphy. To escape, Emil shoots at the gas hose while Robocop stands still, seemingly malfunctioning. Emil throws his cigarette before driving away, and the gas station explodes. Robocop moves just in time and starts shooting at Emil, causing him to crash. As his first display of emotions, Robocop asks who Emil is. Robocop returns to the precinct. He inserts his metal spike into the terminal to access the criminal database and searches for Emil. There, he sees his accomplices, among them is Clarence. He looks at the file of his murder and realizes who he is. In his profile, he sees his address. Robocop visits his home that is currently for sale. He remembers where all his belongings once were and sees the image of his son. He makes his way to the kitchen and sees a picture of his family. He crushes it in his hands and continues to their bedroom. Remembering his wife, all kinds of emotions rush into him, making him unstable. At a club, Robocop walks through the partying crowd. He's in an arrest mode, and there he confronts one of Clarence's goons, Nash. Nash tries to pull out a gun, but he quickly disposes of it. He then tries a cheap shot only to be met with a crotch of steel. RoboCop drags him by the hair to talk. Meanwhile, Bob is having a party of his own with drugs and women. Bob flirts with the two, sniffing snow off the mountain's valley. He has his hands and faces full with the women, but suddenly, the doorbell rings, interrupting the fun. Clarence, with a gun in his hand, makes the women leave. He puts on a silencer and shoots Bob's legs. Clarence plays a video of Richard saying that this is Bob's fault for making him his enemy. Clarence reveals a grenade, bites off the pin, and leaves Bob to crawl for it. He struggles to reach it, and Richard smiles as the house explodes. In a factory, goons line up to pack drugs. Clarence talks to Sal, the owner of the factory. He shows him the money he intends to use to buy the product. Due to his reputation, Sal is reluctant to do business with him. Clarence dips his finger in Sal's wine, and Sal then drinks it. His sweet words don't persuade Sal, and instead, it makes the situation sour as the goons aim their guns at each other. Clarence is unbothered by the tense situation, making Sal agree. They begin to hear banging on the doors, alerting everyone in the building. RoboCop knocks the entrance down and searches for Clarence. The goons start firing at him, but he takes no damage at all. He shoots them off one by one, displaying his gunslinging skills. With every step and every shot, their numbers dwindle. Clarence leaves his goons behind, and he tries to jump but falls through the thin material. RoboCop grabs him, recites the Miranda rights but gets interrupted by spit, so he throws him through the glass. RoboCop approaches him and throws him again. With blood dripping from his face, Clarence snitches on Richard Jones before getting thrown against a window for the third time. Now even bloodier, RoboCop lifts him by the neck, prepared to eliminate Clarence. However, his directives stop him from doing so. In the precinct, John argues with the police staff as they're planning to strike. RoboCop silences the room, handing Clarence to the men. Clarence spits on the form at the table, confidently asking for his phone call. Richard Jones is in a heated phone call with Clarence. He assures him that he'll take care of everything and that he'll be soon out of the precinct. Meanwhile, RoboCop makes his way to OCP headquarters. RoboCop enters the building and rides the elevator to the top floor, where Richard awaits him. He replays Clarence's confession as he approaches Richard's office. Richard greets the cyborg and asks what his purpose is. RoboCop announces his arrest, and Richard accepts with open arms. As he approaches Richard, he begins to malfunction. Richard informs him about a secret directive, where RoboCop isn't allowed to arrest any senior officer of OCP. RoboCop tries to fight his program. The situation worsens when Ed enters the room. Ed showers the cyborg with bullets and flings him to the wall. Meanwhile, Richard reports the commotion to the police. RoboCop sees an opening and grabs Ed's firing arm, pointing it to the other. The robot still operates and fires multiple missiles in RoboCop's direction. He barely dodges and makes his way to the stairwell with Ed close behind. Ed tumbles down because of its large feet, and RoboCop leaves the struggling robot. Outside, he is met with the police's bright lights. The officer in command orders the rest to fire at the cyborg, and some officers shout in disagreement. Still, they fire at RoboCop, and his hard shell gets chipped little by little. He experiences a more gruesome attack than his first death as this time, it's the police shooting and not a criminal. They corner him, but RoboCop escapes through the highway where Anne encounters him. She carries him to her vehicle, and they barely escape. The local news station reports breaking news of the Detroit Police Department citywide strike. Days later, a free Clarence visits OCP headquarters. He enters Richard's office, where he's scolded for snitching on him to RoboCop, saying that the police can use his memories against him. To prevent this, Richard commands Clarence to kill RoboCop. Clarence is reluctant initially but agrees when Richard offers him the chance to manage illegal businesses in Delta City. Richard gives him RoboCop's radar and all the firepower he can dream of. In the abandoned mill, RoboCop repairs himself with help from Anne. She brings him his gun, a drill, and some food. RoboCop removes the screws on his helmet to reveal Murphy's heavily modified head. Hearing about his family, who moved away to start over, RoboCop becomes emotional and asks Anne to leave. Crime prospers in the streets of Detroit as the police are on strike. Emil breaks the window of an electronics store to watch his favorite show. Clarence and the rest of the squad reunites. He shows them his new weaponry and tests it on his goon's brand new vehicle. After wreaking more havoc, they make their way to the abandoned mill. Anne peacefully sleeps when RoboCop wakes her with the sound of his firearm. His targeting system is malfunctioning, and Anne helps him fix it, allowing him to shoot the jars of food from a distance. They hear Clarence and his goons arrive, each with their own assault cannons. RoboCop asks her to leave, but she reminds him that they're partners. He throws a piece of metal that catches the enemy's attention. He shouts in the high ground and shoots one of the goons. The rest starts shooting, but he remains unscathed. Emil approaches Robocop in a van at extreme speeds, but Robocop dodges, revealing the toxic waste storage behind him. Emil arises from the acid, melted and disfigured. Clarence drives to cut off Robocop, but Anne intercepts him. During their car chase, Emil walks in front of Clarence's vehicle, filling the windshield with blood that causes Clarence to crash. Anne arrives at the scene, and Clarence shoots her. Robocop distracts Clarence but is unaware that Nash is above them. Anne sees this and crawls to the assault cannon. Clarence drops his gun and convincingly surrenders to lure him in. Large metal beams drop onto Robocop, and the criminals celebrate until Anne fires the assault cannon on Nash. Clarence grabs a metal bar and starts smacking the still conscious Robocop. Clarence pierces him with the metal, and Robocop pierces his neck with his metal spike. Clarence bleeds out, and the two cops survive to see another day. In the OCP headquarters, Richard plans to send Ed 209s all over the city to replace the police. Outside, Robocop arrives at the entrance, and an Ed robot spots him. It rushes towards him, but a calm Robocop shoots Ed with the assault cannon. As the board members applaud Richard, Robocop enters the conference room and reports Richard's criminal charges to the CEO. Robocop inserts his metal spike into the displays. Richard's confession of killing Bob plays on the screens. Feeling trapped, Richard takes the CEO hostage and threatens to kill him if anyone tries to intervene. The CEO then fires Richard, and the warning for the fourth directive disappears, allowing Robocop to shoot Richard falls through the window and meets his demise. The CEO commends his gunslinging skills and asks for his name. Robocop introduces himself as Murphy. War on drugs and crime, in general, prevails during these times. The government's action to combat it is, of course, violence. They resort to endangering the lives of police officers and civilians to purge old Detroit of crime. To alleviate the fear, they integrate technology in a sort of disposable solution. Robocop and Ed 209 are examples of such. What they didn't account for is Robocop turning on his creators. The overturn of power sheds light on the truth that corrupt, mechanized, and militarized systems might be the true crime behind it all.